Greetings and good day. This is Donnie with Techwinner, and thank you so much for joining me today. Well, guys, over the past 6 months, I have been testing something new that involves cost savings and a better phone experience all at the same time. So I'm here today to tell you about the journey, what it looks like, and will it make the most sense for you as well? Maybe it will. But without any further ado, let's dive in and let's take a look. So guys, I want to tell you right now on the front end, I'm going to talk about my journey from AT&T wireless to Metro by T-Mobile, moving from what's called a postpaid plan to a prepaid plan, and also buying a phone in the process. And nothing I'm going to talk about today has been sponsored. I'm not sponsored by AT&T. I'm not sponsored by Metro by T-Mobile. I'm not sponsored by any third-party cell phone resellers either. So to really start this journey at the beginning, you have to go back 17 years. Yes, I have been an AT&T wireless customer since the year 2004. By 2021, I had had enough. I was tired of paying for data plans that continued to increase, and the reality was, in my area, the cell service just wasn't that great. I live in an area that's seeing tremendous construction growth over the last few years, and as a result, the cell service, at least with AT&T at the time, hadn't been keeping up. Now, not everything's bad with AT&T. I also have AT&T fiber to my home, and it's absolutely great. Totally recommend it for everyone who has the opportunity to get fiber, whether it's from AT&T or from whatever local carrier you might have. So for my wife and I, we basically had a shared plan, 2 lines. Both of us are iPhone users. And for us, we were sharing 10 gig of data a month. So at the time, again, this is around mid 2021, shared data plan, 10 gig a month. So the problem with the shared 10 gig data plan is you run out of data. And at least at the time, with the way that the plans were structured with AT&T, once you run out of that 10 gig of data a month, you get throttled. What does throttling mean? Throttling means that you get less than a meg of download speed at any given time. In fact, the fine print that AT&T had showed 128K, which is barely fast enough to maybe download some email, maybe get Waze to work, but anything beyond that, you might as well forget it. So the reality is, at least early on in the pandemic, we were at home, we weren't consuming a ton of data, but even if you just go out and you're scrolling through Facebook or Instagram stories, you're streaming video, and that data totally adds up. So what we found ourselves falling into was just the regular habit of about day 25 of the 31 day month, we were just running out of data. So then you've got like practically a week where you're just crawling along and maybe you can check your email. Not a great experience. So I've been looking at some other tech reviewers and some of the things they've been saying about moving from what's called a postpaid plan to a prepaid plan with different carriers. So this is a good opportunity to just step back and talk about some of the major carriers. Yes, I'm talking about AT&T, Verizon, and T-Mobile. Those are the 3 major carriers inside the United States. Obviously, if you're in other countries, you've got other major carriers. Those are the 3 postpaid plans. But then you have other carriers out there that are what are called prepaid plans. Basically, you're paying for the month in advance before you use the service. Prepaid carriers have worked out deals with those major carriers basically for bandwidth that's not getting used at any given time. They buy that space and then they resell it to you at a lower price. Now, because it's reused, they're also getting a better deal buying it from these major carriers like AT&T, Verizon, or T-Mobile. So I started looking at prepaid plans, and it really intrigued me when I started looking at the price. So once you added in the data plan, unlimited talk, text, which pretty much everybody has these days, but when you start adding in the data and the taxes, the service charges, the 911 equipment fee, all of this stuff adds up. I was paying AT&T for 2 lines approximately $130 a month. So basically, I was looking for a way to move from a shared 10 gig data plan to something that would be unlimited and hopefully save on our monthly bill. So I started shopping around for these prepaid plans, and I landed on a prepaid plan on the T-Mobile network called Metro by T-Mobile. So what's interesting about this is it's their prepaid plan and it runs on the T-Mobile network, but you don't have to pay the full prices like you would if you were just a standard T-Mobile customer. So again, I'm going to try to compare apples to apples, no pun intended. But when I was looking at the Metro by T-Mobile plans, essentially you're paying $50 a month for the first line, and you can add a second line for another $30. So $80 total, unlimited data to both phones, 5 gig of hotspot data, and really the only catch was I would have to pay $10 to get a SIM card to put in my phone. Now, this is where I'm going to talk about something that might not make sense for you, that made a lot of sense for me. My AT&T plan, as it was structured, I had paid off both phones. We both had iPhone 10s. They're both older phones. And yes, I am still using my iPhone 10 that is now over 4 years old. Guys, hashtag trying to make it 5 years on this thing. We'll see if it happens. Keep you updated if I end up upgrading. I did upgrade my wife's phone in this process, and I'll talk a little bit about that here in just a moment. Because these phones were paid off, I essentially had the right to take them to any carrier that I wanted. The beauty of modern smartphones is that basically they'll work with any carrier. You put in that carrier SIM card, as long as that device has been unlocked, it will work. I did have to go through a process with AT&T to request that the phone be essentially released so that it could be used with other carriers, but because I own the phone, I have the right to request that, and AT&T is required to comply. So the fact that I'd be paying $80 a month versus $130, guys, that's $50 a month savings. I was willing to take the risk, understanding that I wouldn't get as good of a data service on the T-Mobile network, but I was willing to try it for at least a month and see how it worked out. So I took the plunge. I ordered 2 SIM cards. They came in the mail, and the process of actually walking through and activating the phone was incredibly easy to do. I did it all myself on Metro's website. I was able to use my existing phone number that we had been using for, yes, the last 17 years on AT&T, move those phone numbers over to Metro by T-Mobile, put the new SIM card into our existing iPhones. We hit the ground running. So honestly, my sense was I'm going to try this for a few days. We'll see if it works. If not, I've still got the AT&T data plan. We can put the SIM cards back in. We can call it a day. We can move forward with AT&T and just keep living our lives. But if this is better, maybe we'll stick with it. Well, guys, here I am, 6 months later. I'm still on Metro by T-Mobile, and it's been absolutely terrific. Now, I do want to point out here, your mileage may vary because it's going to be 100% dependent on what the coverage looks like in your area. Now, one of the things about being on the prepaid plans, like I mentioned a moment ago, is the fact that you aren't going to get prioritized on their network, whoever it is, whether it's somebody that's riding on the T-Mobile network, AT&T, Verizon. However, in my experience, this has been a non-issue. I have not seen myself getting throttled. The speeds have been consistent. Absolutely great experience, especially compared to what I was seeing in my AT&T area where service was really weak because I hadn't been keeping up with the new population growth that's been happening in my city. So guys, here's the beauty of it. Over the last 6 months, I've saved $50 a month. That's real savings of $300. That's over the year, I'm going to be saving $600. So guys, as I got into the editing of this video, I realized there's a whole lot of content here, and saving $600 a year is just step one of this process. But guys, the biggest thing about untangling yourself from one of the big 3 carriers oftentimes is going to be, what do you do about a phone when it comes time for you to upgrade to a new device? So Part 2 is coming soon. We're going to talk about that process specifically, some tips and tricks I've learned along the way that just compound that $600 a year of savings that we've already talked about. So that's coming soon. Stay tuned. When I upload Part 2, I'll also put in the description a link so you can go check that out as well. In the meantime, if you haven't already, I'd encourage you to hit that like button, subscribe, and hit that bell notification so that you're always staying up to date as new content is uploaded. But in the meantime, I'm Donnie with Techwinner, helping you make winning decisions when it comes to your tech. Thank you so much for joining me. You guys have a great day.